The landscapes of our lives are for learning, where experience is our teacher. When we gather together to share our resources, we are destined to love and thrive. Good morning, Pierre.
Hey, good morning, Maureen. You've got this beautiful, sunburst coming in on the side, and then a beautiful blue sky, and just gorgeous.
Nice background.
So you were talking or wanted to talk about like the Ready State podcast or something?
Yeah. The Ready State podcast is
What is it?
The Ready State is like trademarked by a guy named Starrett, who wrote the Supple Leopard, which is a book about, I'm going to grab it right now, the ultimate guide to resolving pain, preventing injury, and optimizing athletic performance. And it's
athletic performance type thing, or what's the pain part about?
It's about physical pain,
Right.
And preventing injury, and it's about athletic performance, but it's basically about movement in your body. So the reason why I wanted to share it with you on this podcast and talk about it is not only that it's like interesting to me personally as someone who's a yoga teacher and practices yoga and has always been a mover, and now like in the CrossFit space, I suppose, working out as an older woman in menopause. It's that embodiment piece and pain and healing yourself and connecting to your body and resolving, what's happening in me. Who am I as a body, right? So like this is a little slice of that. He's I think he's a physical therapist. But anyways, Rob sent me one episode with his kind of friend Jill Miller, who is a fascia expert, and she came from the world of yoga. And so
explain fascia. I mean, I know what it is, but yeah.
I will in a second, but he's really known for using foam rollers and balls to recover from, muscular pain and injury, or just from working out. And so I'm constantly using, his methods and a ball and a foam roller with trigger points and so forth to to recover from working out and to work with injuries and so forth.
Well, I've used them, but only for, how does the foam roller help you to recover?
Oh, well, listen to the Ready State podcast, read Having a Supple Leopard, find Jill Miller, the expert on the evolution of fascia. She's a fascia expert. And anyways,
I think I want to read that. What's her name again? Jill Miller?
Jill Miller. It's the Ready State podcast. This episode is with Jill Miller on the Ready State. The Ready State is the name of the podcast.
Okay.
Starrett and his wife just started this podcast.
They've
got a lot of stuff online and apps and so forth, but Jill Miller has been working with him for a decade with all of this rolling and the ball stuff. She's like the ball and roller expert. You can find out more about it. But anyways,
I've used a roller to address some muscle tightness and fascia, and just trying to get more flexibility in my thighs and stuff like that. But I've never really associated it with all these other things. So
so fascia is connective tissue, muscle connective muscle tissue, and it can, it kind of speaks to like the holistic picture of our interconnectedness in terms of muscle and sensory motor movement and so forth. And I do sensory motor psychotherapy, working with the body, posture, movement and so forth to relieve trauma. Anyways, in this podcast, she refers to Stephen Porges and his work which we've talked about before, and the body keeps the score and all that stuff. So,
Right.
when we talk about embodiment stuff and how we've been more disconnected from our bodies in our modern culture and so forth, they're talking about this in a podcast in terms of the actual body healing muscle pain and injury and performance and nutrition and hydration in an actual concrete way, right? So
Nice.
our podcast is Mind Body Resources. This is really about the body piece, but they do talk about how it can relieve emotional issues.
Oh my gosh.
In the
That's what this whole
tissues.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what this whole thing is about. One
Yeah.
thing that struck me in all of this, as you were describing it, is, how far we've come. And that's one of the reasons we're here, this exploding world of information. And if I go back in time, in just decades, weightlifting, people talked about muscle, and stretching, and, they're just kind of general terms about strength and stretching and flexibility. Now it's broken down. And when we were in yoga class, we got to learn, like, oh, hey, yeah, this is your muscle. However, these are your tendons, ligaments, fascia surrounding the muscle. Those things operate differently than a muscle, have to be worked with differently and treated differently. So you get the yin yoga, the much longer holds to stretching, where you stretch in a posture for 5 minutes as opposed to 50 seconds, maybe a yoga posture. Anyway, just an example of how this information is going really deep and really far. So appreciate it.
And now I think, like, these people in these disparate different areas are connecting with each other. Like Kelly Starrett talks to Andrew Huberman, like the neuroscientists, like they're all kind of starting to connect, which I think is really cool. But anyways, so that was the Ready State episode with Jill Miller. I thought was really interesting as a yoga teacher, as a fitness person. She talked about her own life and, had disordered eating, and talked about how she really connected to her body when she was disconnected from it. A yoga teacher asked her to lay on this like sandbag that was shaped in a hamburger bun. So she couldn't feel her abdominal muscles. She had no connection to her abdominal muscles because she was so cut off from her body. And so she laid on this, and one thing led to another, and she started to use a towel to roll and actually connect to her visceral organs and her abdominal muscles. And then this led into fascia rolling with these rollers and balls and so forth. So she's been in this for a long time. Anyways, it's really interesting. But the other guest that he had,
no, I appreciate it. I'm gonna listen to that. And it's hard to keep up with all this stuff. That's why we're here. And great to sometimes we talk about stuff that we both are listening to, but this is new for me, so I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah.
Jill Miller, Ready State podcast. I'll check it out.
Yeah. I just want to mention the other guest that he had on in a different episode was Stacy Sims. And this is a woman I just found on Instagram. She's a PhD. She's from Stanford. She's literally the only one, or one of two women who really do research on women my age, perimenopausal and menopausal, in terms of nutrition and performance. And it's kind of funny because whatever, I'm an old lady going to CrossFit, and you're trying, I fuel my body. I don't think about food as like, I don't know, I got to eat to live. I think about it in terms of training and when to eat, what to eat, how to recover through nutrition and timing. And it all matters as far as lean muscle mass development or loss as I lose estrogen through menopause. and what I
Right.
can do specifically, you know, how much magnesium do I need? What is happening with my menopausal changes and how that relates to fitness. So this woman is like the expert, and she's only one of two women who actually study women in this performance, nutrition, fitness kind of phase of life. So
Right.
to me, it's like I just struck gold because
Right.
everything that we know about how to eat and performance and fitness is for men only, right? I
Right.
mean, it's just
Right.
what the medical
Right.
field is focused on men. And
Right.
actually there are definite differences on, like, just for example, I need to take in protein after I work out quicker than a man would, like as soon as I can after working out, because of the way my musculature and my internal hormonal working my needs are
That's
different than a
interesting.
25-year-old guy, right? So
Right.
really super specific, great information that, like,
Yeah.
I'm so excited that I found her.
That's
Yeah,
neat. I think other people will be too. It just the bigger picture is that, you know, this these conversations about health are moving in so many different directions, and they're moving into people of older age, and they're breaking it down for women and men, and it's just phenomenal listening to you talk about eating to fuel your body is so healthy because it rarely is that intentional an exercise. We just sit down and plow through some food, or
mindlessly.
stomach says we're hungry and stop at McDonald's and get a burger and whatever it is that you do. So very cool, very, very cool.
Yeah, it's important stuff because it relates to, you know, the obesity epidemic, like girls and body dysmorphia, like eating disorders, and it's a real thing.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up with a Pierre optimism thing. I forget where I was, but I guess I was in Denver visiting my daughter. It just seems to me like maybe I'm seeing a little bit of the younger generation with better body types because they're more interested in being healthy, a little bit more exercise, a little bit more regular eating, a lot more vegetarianism. And maybe this is a social class thing as well, but I just see these large, you know, swings. And I think it's, you know, people in, the obesity problem hopefully is maybe the light has gone on that this just cannot continue.
Yeah, I think it's connected to mindfulness. It's the intentionality, getting the more information, getting more connected to yourself, the slowing down. What am I experiencing in my body, in my mind? You know, we've talked a lot about the mind part and that stuff, but really I think that mindfulness is connected to more mindful eating, like
Right.
just living with more intention. And I think it probably, I don't know if it's socioeconomic, but it seems to be that when people have access to more resources, you know, and more education, that they're going to be able to be more mindful and make different choices or whatever, or that just their environment is shaping them. So surely I'm sure that has an impact. But that's the beauty of the internet, is that now we have good information and we can share it to, you know, disparate places, and, you know, it can
Right.
be accessible. So, but like you and I have always
I
talked
think
about,
I
it's hard
think
to
that's
sort
one.
through it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I'm seeing. The internet is out there and there's all this information that you mentioned, good and bad. However, when that content was more focused, I remember when my parents there'd be one diet fad and it would like cross the nation, or advertising on the few channels that were existent, push cigarettes, or they push this or they push that. Now, yes, there are very big, narrative waves around there, but there's also access to all this other information. And I think people are not stupid, and they're pulling those things that they experience as valuable. And I'm just amazed.
How do you know you're getting the right information? That's what I'm talking about. Like you and I sort of vetting a lot of this stuff, finding it, vetting it, and, talking about
I
it.
think, I think, I think because there's so much information out there, and you're not being told what to do necessarily, so to speak, or everybody's telling you what to do, so nobody is. That I think the younger generation is experiencing it and evaluating it viscerally. In other words, yes, you have to look like somebody else, and yes, you're following trends and all the rest of that. But at some level, because there's so much information, you're developing some visceral kind of, I don't know, filter, but way of imbibing this. And like, I'm just surprised at how many people are pursuing healthier patterns.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of in touch with themselves. They're sorting out this information and finding some stuff. It just was very heartening to me. I sat down at Thanksgiving with my two daughters, their partners, 3 Friendsgiving people came over, and their eating and drinking habits were amazing. Like, wow, okay, that's let's see, 4, 7 people, and like 6 of them are all, in this healthy vein, and
Making more
that's,
intentional choices and just
yeah,
aware and like,
yeah. And it wasn't like everybody's a vegetarian or they're all in some sort of group. They're very disparate.
yeah,
But they all had this a bit of intentionality. That's the
yeah,
best word.
mindful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Thanks.
I mean, it's encouraging for me to hear because my the horn that I'm constantly tooting is like knowing your own resources, right? Discovering and connecting with your own inner landscape and those resources that you have, like who you are as a body viscerally in your sensory experience, right? And then
Right.
and what's available to you, like walking, exercise, movement, sleep, all those things that are just part of us as embodied beings, how to leverage those resources and tools. And then all the stuff that you and I are kind of trying to talk about, those external resources that can be helpful to people in
Yeah.
their inner discovery, right? Like tools for finding your inner tools. I think I like to think of it that way. So what can a foam roller and a ball do for you and your viscera and your bones and your skins and your joints and yoga and all that, but also like how that's connected to your emotional life and like,
Yeah. Yeah. Jill Miller, foam rollers,
and
balls. I'm gonna
and
check her out.
and Stacy Sims for
Stacy Sims, right.
yeah,
Right.
both of
Right.
them really good resources.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
thanks, Maureen. I really appreciate learning something this morning about all of that. So I'm Pierre from Yoga Heals Everywhere.
And Maureen from Landscapes for Learning, inside and out, live to learn to live.
Ooh, love that. Inside and out. Well, peace through grace. Peace through grace.